Hello everyone, this is G and I'm back with another video. So this is I guess the second video of the day, the afternoon video of the day. It's almost 2 o'clock here. So I'm actually responding to something that I just found out about. So apparently Dan Fraga, who is the creator of Black Flag, has joined Comicsgate, right? He made an announcement on Twitter that he joined Comicsgate. And he made a video explaining why, basically stating that that the big bad boogeymen of comics, that is Comicsgate, have only treated him with respect and open arms, and that it's people who he was formerly friends with in the industry who are now calling him up and saying I can't be friends with you anymore, and he compares it to McCarthyism and whatnot. He wants to join Comicsgate. That's fine. I have no issue with that. It's not my place to determine a person's allegiances. But here's the reason I'm making this video. I'm not making this video because he made a video about joining Comicsgate. I'm indifferent on that. He wants to do that, fine. What I'm responding to is a tweet by B. Clay Moore, who's a comic artist who's had a lot of issues with Comicsgate over the years, in particular Doug Ernst and Captain Cummings, who actually left the CG movement some time ago. But what the tweet says here, now I have to say I'm reading this from a video. I think it's called Memology 101. I can't find the tweet itself in either B. Clay Moore's Twitter or Fraga's Twitter, so I don't know if B. Clay Moore removed it or if it's buried. I can't find it. So all I'm going by is what's documented here in this video. And what it says here is that this is from B. Clay Moore, and he's responding to Dan Fraga's announcement that he's joined Comicsgate. So it says here, or rather, I should say it's the second tweet of two, it seems, at least two. So here's what B. Clay Moore says, according to this video. And no one's stopping you from doing whatever work you want to do. I mean, sure, if your work is sexist, racist, or pure garbage, then Comicsgate will work overtime to support you. I'm not sure how in tune with the industry you are, dude, because you're not making sense. All I have to say to B. Clay Moore is prove it. Prove it. Prove that Comicsgate is this sexist, racist group that you claim it is. Because you don't give any examples, Chief. And we all know, anybody who's been following DNC and that umbrella guy and even Ethan knows that you tend to talk tough, but you're not actually tough. So please, tell me where this is sexism or racism or pure garbage is. Because the only books right now in comics that seem to be making any sort of money are either Cyberfrog or Jawbreakers. Okay? Them's the facts. Them's the facts. Those are the only books actually generating interest in getting people to spend money. Keep in mind, like, the entry price point for these books is $25, and yet you have comic fans who are more willing to put down $25 at the bare minimum. Many people go to like $50 at least because of the perks. Then are willing to put down $4, $5, $7 for a mainstream comic book, because the mainstream comics, even from indie titles like, say, Image, are just objectively bad. So that's the first thing. Second thing is, look, I have my issues with Comicsgate. Comicsgate is by no means a perfect movement. It's full of a lot of infighting, a lot of interpersonal drama. There's been a schism. There's OG, CG, which if I had to choose a side, I would say I'm more aligned with them. I'm more in the line of just being a critic, right? And then, as I have made videos about earlier this year, back in January, early February, I do not like Ethan Van Sciver and the war campaign one damn bit. Okay, I have had personal interactions with Ethan on one of his videos back when there was this beef and this conflict between him and Nerdette's Newsstand, and I was on Nerdette's side. I responded to Ethan. Ethan responded to me. It was not kind on either side. So believe me, I don't like him, and he probably don't like me. And I know certainly that some of his more devoted followers don't like me. They made it perfectly clear. But here's the thing. My own personal animosity toward Ethan aside, I would not call the man a racist or a sexist. There is, at least at this point, no proof of that. I don't like him. I think he has his issues. I think in some ways he's as much an SJW as the rest of the pros, and that he gets a pass because he is Comicsgate, but I would not call the man racist or sexist. I would not call Richard C. Meyer racist or sexist at all, especially when you consider the fact that his biggest work, at least up until, what's he doing now? Expendables Go to Hell, I think it is, right? But like the big work that sort of got him on the map was Jawbreakers. Keep in mind, Jawbreakers had the story, the main story, Lost Souls, takes place in Africa, right? The team is multiracial, right? The lead character of Silkworm, I think, is Filipino American, if I remember correctly. And then, of course, there was Zashi, right, who was a character who Rich said himself was initially just supposed to be a bit player, a bit character in the story, but then fan response to the character, in particular to her design, which was, sexy girl in a tattered bikini, caused him to give her a bigger role in the story. But the role in the story that she did play, at least in Jawbreakers, I haven't read the God King book yet, but at least in Jawbreakers, right, she was shown to be, I think, a decent character. I think she did a little more characterization, but to me, she didn't come across as a sexist depiction of a woman. Now, fan servicey, yes, certainly. And I see no problem with that. It made sense in the context of the story. And in fact, the character got her name of Zashi because the woman who, the artist who drew her and came up with the design is female. And so DNC, he basically had a video where he asked people to submit names for the character. And in the end, he just chose to name the character after the artist, interestingly enough. So I don't see how you can call the guy a sexist, right? The only thing that the pros ever bring up when it comes to him is that years ago, it has to be, around 3 years now, he did exactly one, what he called a dark roast. And he was basically roasting Heather Antos, who had gotten herself in the, I guess you could say, in the comics Twitter, I guess got him within the sights of comics Twitter, Comicsgate, whatever you want to call it, by completely overreacting on the milkshake incident. And then basically her response to all that showed how much of a non-geek, how much of a fake geek girl she was. And so he did a dark roast. He roasted her in what was supposed to be a private thing. It wasn't like it was a public video that he made. But yes, he called her some names. He was less than mature. But here's the thing. He never did it again. He admitted he was wrong, and he apologized. He even apologized to Mags Visaggio, who was a trans artist who he had issues with and belittled for at least well over a year, right? Saying things like, man in a wig and all this other stuff, right? But he stopped doing it and he apologized. That's the funny thing about these the comic book pros, right? They remember every bad word that someone in Comicsgate said, but they conveniently never bring up the other side, what happened afterwards. They never mention if the person apologized, if the person changed their ways, if their viewpoints on something changed. Never, ever, ever mention all that. But the moment someone says something, does something, or lies with them, they're a sexist, racist group. Yet you can't provide any proof of it. Are they saints? No. Are they devils? Certainly not. And the thing is that if you look through even just modern day comics pros, you'll see that if there's anybody or any side that is full of racist and sexist, it would be more on the pro side. And there's proof on that. There are receipts on that. Let's, for example, go back to, I don't know, maybe February 2019, maybe February 2018, at least a year or two ago, right? Eric Esquivel, right, is picked up by DC Comics to write on their Vertigo imprint, right? He comes up with this story called Border Town, right? Which has got to be one of the most racist things I've ever seen. The art is ugly. The character, who is supposed to be biracial, I think like half Mexican, half Irish or whatever, is insufferable. And it plays to every negative stereotype about Latinos that there is. And it plays to them for no reason. It is not commentary. It is not exposing twisted thinking. It's just that everybody is just a walking, talking stereotype, right? There's a group of there's supposed to be a blend of rednecks and ICE agents, and of course, they are stereotypically white. They are stereotypically, just hateful bigots for no reason at all, right? I remember when Marvel did the Silver Sable comic book, and they were actually daring enough to include an actual bigot on the hero team. And even in that book, they actually took a sympathetic look at a character like him and tried to use him as an examination of why someone feels this way. Okay, that's back when Marvel was daring, when Marvel was actually willing to take a chance. That's back when, I don't like to use coarse language when I can avoid it, but that was back when Marvel had balls and were actually willing to do such a thing, to actually have sympathy for the devil, as it were. But that was back in the 1990s. That's almost 30 years ago now. But DC didn't seem to have a problem with publishing a blatantly racist book like Border Town. And you don't have to take my word for it. Just some guy did several videos on it. You can check out his channel. In fact, I suggest that you should, because he makes it a point to review the works of people like Esquivel and Mark Waid and others who do make this sincerely racist, right, work. So there's that, right? But although many critics panned Border Town, DC didn't get rid of it. The only reason DC got rid of Border Town is because Eric Esquivel got caught up in a sexual misconduct scandal with one of his ex-girlfriends, where he simultaneously denies that he's guilty of any wrongdoing, but then also kind of admits it and doesn't know what and didn't realize what he did was wrong, and tries to blame everybody from Gene Simmons of Kiss to James Bond for his behavior. I am not joking. There were videos about this. You can check out Just Some Guy. You can check out DanFan29. It was insane. It was like last year or February 2018. I forget which one. I want to say last year, but I'm not positive. But you can just type Eric Esquivel in YouTube and it'll come up. Right? But when Eric Esquivel and Eddie Berganza, who himself was caught up in sexual misconduct years ago, and DC knew this for years. They knew it for years and said nothing. When they team up to do their own book or imprint or something, I think this was was mentioned last month. Where were the pros then? Where were the pros denouncing them? To my knowledge, nowhere. Now, Comicsgate denounced the living hell out of those two, and rightfully so. But the pros, silent, just silent. Enjoy the silence, because you're never gonna hear a peep out of them about those two, because those two are two of their own. They will never speak out against their own unless their own goes to Comicsgate or something. But they're the ones who, with their silence, allow actual reprehensible behavior to continue with their complicit silence and their complicit knowledge. And let's bring up Mark Waid. Mark Waid, who's infamous for his rages and his temper. Mark Waid, who it is alleged, I will make this clear, it is alleged that he got into business a few years ago with a black couple that had a comic shop. And then he basically, again, it is alleged that he basically harassed them out of ownership of the comic shop. Right? The same Mark Waid, who it is alleged that when someone that he had serious personal disagreements with died, that he sent the woman's wife a black wreath. Right? This is alleged. Now, but many people find it to be true. And let's not forget, Mark Waid, who is currently being sued by Richard C. Meyer, better known as Comics Matter, formerly known as Diversity in Comics. Insert overly long, just some guy name joke here. Right? And now, why is DNC suing him? DNC is suing him for tortious interference because Mark Waid was dumb enough to state on Twitter that he was going to call Antarctic Press and try to talk them out of publishing Jawbreakers. Because what DNC wanted more than anything was to actually see his comic book in comic book shops. Right? He's an old school comics guy. He wants to help the shops. And Mark Waid stated on Twitter, there are plenty of tweets, everybody and their mother was covering it as it happened. That Umbrella guy was all over it. All the comic channels were following it. Mark Waid states that he's going to call Antarctic Press. He says that he has called Antarctic Press and that he spoke to someone at Antarctic Press. And then what happens shortly after? Antarctic Press says that they're dropping Jawbreakers. And Mark Waid wonders why he's being sued. That's why, buddy. Because it looks like you have allegedly, engaged in tortious interference with a contract, right? You basically interfered with another man's business because you didn't like him personally. And keep in mind, the people who run Antarctic Press, if I remember correctly, are Asian or part Asian. Oh, and let's bring up Peter Samedi, I should say, of Alterna Comics, right? He has spoken openly, and believe me, he has his own issues with certain people within Comicsgate, but he's also talked openly about how he has been mistreated by the comic book pros, right? And keep in mind, he is someone who is I think he's half Asian, I think it is, right? So please tell me again, which side is the one with the dirtier laundry, right? Both sides are imperfect. Both sides have their issues. But which one, objectively speaking, has the dirtier laundry, right? Which side is the one that keeps quiet while others behave badly? Because I don't see Comicsgate doing that. Hell, Comicsgate is fighting within itself. There are people within Comicsgate who don't like Ethan and who will call Ethan out or call people associated with him out. So at least there is some kind of internal checking there, but no such thing seems to exist in the mainstream comic industry, right? The pros live by a code of silence even when it can potentially hurt others. Right? So please tell me again, which side is the worst person here, right? because I don't think it's Comicsgate. For all of my issues with Comicsgate, I don't think it's Comicsgate. Right? And then, of course, there are the comics that Waid has made, such as his run on Captain America, which, what's A, not good, and B, was just very dreary and very racially driven in certain ways. But that's not even the big part of it. Let's talk about the comic, the I guess you could say indie comic projects he's done, such as Black. I think he was on Black or helped with it. But Black is more Kwanzaa Osejef, or however in the world you say his name. And Kwanzaa is probably the definition of that black guy who's really actually like quite nerdy, and he like overacts. He like tries too hard to be like a tough dude from the hood, right? But just some guy has done several of reviews of his work, Black and other related works, and he points out in his reviews how A, awful the art is, and B, how racist or racial, depending on how you view it, the content of the book is. But in particular, right now, Waid and Kwanzaa are working together on this book called Ignited. Now, what the story of Ignited, I think, is supposed to be about these teenagers who were the victims of a school shooting, and now they get superpowers. I think that it's supposed to be the whole prey becomes the predator thing. But what it honestly seems to be, and I've seen reviews for it from not just some guy, but from Dan Fan and several others who actually cover it. It seems to be that the theme of the book is, if you are pro-gun, you are bad, and therefore you deserve to have violence acted against you. That seems to be the theme of the book. And that's from different people who have reviewed it. So again, you have these divisive politics, right? And this in many instances, disgusting, inexcusable, and at times breaking the law behavior. And keep in mind, I've actually had a Facebook conversation, I think in January of 2019, maybe? I think it was late January 2019. It was around the time the whole Covington kids thing happened, and there was questions about the article that I remember seeing was that there were people digging into the past of the students, because of course there were, because those students were vilified as you know, being racist and white supremacist, just because one kid, Nicholas Sandman, grinned awkwardly as a Native American man beat a drum in his face. Oh my God, so racist. White kid smiles awkwardly in front of Native American drum beater. So racist. But anyway, this article had come out stating that the school had engaged in a blackout, where the team and members of the team and the audience like painted their face black, and they painted their body black, and of course Waid and others are like, see, it's proof that they're racist. I'm like, no, it's not. I'm like, have you ever heard of a gold out or a blue out or anything like that in sports? It's not like they were engaging in actual racist caricature. Like if someone had done the actual blackface, which is to paint your skin black and then give yourself a big nose and big lips, as a caricature of African American features, then yeah, I would say that is blackface or brownface, depending on how you put it. And you know, that I certainly would have said yeah, not cool. But that's not what the team did. They just literally painted their face and their skin black. It's no different than a white out. It's no different than a gold out, a blue out, or anything else. So I tell Waid this, right? I tell Waid this. We go back and forth. We ultimately end up agreeing to disagree on the issue. Fair enough. I don't mind that. So another person on his page engages me in a conversation. And so now I'm talking to that person. Waid sees it. Waid tells me to stop. Waid tells me to stop. I'm not even talking to him anymore, but he tells me to stop. I find that funny. And I'm just going to state it. Yeah, I do think it was motivated on his part because of the fact that it was a brown woman actually sticking up for these white kids. That's what I think. I'm not in his head, but that's what I think. Because I find it interesting that he says he and I aren't going to talk about it anymore, and I was fine with that. So I wasn't engaging him in conversation. I was engaging another person, going back and forth with them, and suddenly I'm the one who has to shut up and move on. Although I gave nothing but respectful responses. So yeah, I never forgot that, Waid. But anyhow, and I made videos about it for anybody who was interested. It's like late January 2019, I think like January 30th, 31st, something like that, if you are interested. So again, right, which side is covered in more dirt? Which side is more guilty? Because so far, all I can see is that Comicsgate is guilty of infighting and being filled with divas. Welcome to the entertainment industry. Whereas it seems like mainstream comics is full of sincerely less than good people who will not speak up when actual bad stuff happens and the people they are allied with are guilty of it. Where they will make actual overtly racist stuff and then call the people who call it out for its racism or its sexism or whatnot, they're the problems. They'll basically try to gaslight you. So yeah, B. Claymore, the same guy who had to, who Captain Cummings had to get into a very animated real life confrontation with just to get his $45 back for a funding project that you never finished. B. Claymore, do you remember Hawaiian Dick? B. Claymore. People want to talk about Ethan and DNC being late on their projects. At least they deliver. Last I checked, B. Claymore never delivered on Hawaiian Dick. So really, if this ain't the smoking black pot calling the kettle black, I don't know what is. And like I said, Comicsgate isn't perfect. I have my own issues with certain factions and certain peoples within Comicsgate, but at least from what I can see thus far, Comicsgate is nowhere near as bad as the pros in the mainstream comics industry. So really, B. Claymore, if you're going to claim that entire movement, which is full of different people of different races, sexes, sexualities, viewpoints, and whatnot, if you're going to say that Comicsgate is sexist, or that, as the tweet says here, if your work is sexist, racist, or pure garbage, Comicsgate will work overtime to support you, you may want to actually produce an example of when Comicsgate supported a creator because they were sexist, racist, or pure garbage. Because here's the thing, for all of the ills Comicsgate may have, Comicsgate didn't hire Zoe Quinn, who drove a man to suicide. DC Comics did. But anyway, that's my video. That's my opinion on the subject. Please let me know what you think. And I will see you all in the next one. Bye.